Hello everyone. Today we will learn about nuclear physics. My name is Hafizi Habibullah. Before we start our lesson, we will look at the learning standard. In 6.2 nuclear energy, 6.2.4 describe generation of electrical energy in nuclear reactor, and for 6.2.5 justify the use of nuclear energy as an alternative energy to generate electrical energy. Can you all see all these four picture? The boys at the top left, we can see that he using a virtual reality device. On the top right, we can see one of the greatest car in the world, which is Tesla. At the bottom right, we can see iPhone, which is one of the greatest smartphone in this century. And lastly, on the bottom left, sorry, on the bottom right, we can see one of the greatest device for mankind and also for me, which is PS5, PlayStation 5. We can say that all these device must be turned on using electrical energy. So where can this device get the electrical energy? Let's we find out together. Energy will be divided into two categories. First is renewable energy. Second, non-renewable energy. Renewable energy will be divided into few types, which is first biomass energy, hydropower energy that use water flow, wind energy which is use the flow of wind, solar energy which is use the sunlight, and lastly geothermal energy which is it use the heat from the underground. For non-renewable energy, we have fossil fuel, oil, natural gas, coal, and lastly nuclear. We can say that this both energy has its own good and bad. Firstly, for renewable energy, for hydropower energy, wind energy, and solar energy, it requires the wind, the water, and the sunlight. It's very dependent to the nature. And the good thing is, this renewable energy is a most green technology. For non-renewable energy, for fossil fuel and coal, has its own benefit, which is we did not dependent on the nature. But the bad things about this non-renewable energy is it will release carbon dioxide and will affect the world. But today we will look at the nuclear energy, which is has the cleanest method, but it has its own bad effects. Let's find out what is it. Before we look deeper on nuclear energy, we must recall on nuclear fission. What is nuclear fission? Nuclear fission is a nuclear reaction when a heavy nucleus split into two or more lighter nuclei while releasing a large amount of energy. We can see at this picture an example. A uranium 235 nucleus is bombarded by a neutron, and then an unstable uranium 236 nucleus is produced. When these particles are not un, are not unstable, it will split and it produces a barium 141 nucleus and krypton 92 nucleus, and three neutrons are produced, and also energy will release on this reaction. One question that will pop on our head is how nuclear can produce energy. Okay, if for nuclear to produce energy, it requires nuclear reactor. And how nuclear reactor produce energy? On this picture, we will explain to you how nuclear reactor produce an energy. Nuclear reactor process. On the left side of this slide, we can see a picture. This picture is one of the important thing in nuclear reactor. We call this as the heart of the nuclear reactor, because in this picture a nuclear fission of uranium 235 and its change reaction produce heat energy. If you could recall from previous lesson, nuclear fission will produce an energy, and the energy is a heat energy. For the next process, in step 2, water is pumped into the reactor core to absorb the heat energy that is produced by the nuclear fission. This is important because the water will cool down the reactor core, and we will avoid the reactor to overheat. The next step for this process is step 3. From step 2, the water will pump into the core reactor and absorb the heat. Then the water will boil. When the water is boiling, it will produce high pressure of steam, and this steam will be channeled into the turbine. The next step on nuclear reactor process is, we know that from the boiling water it produces high pressure of steam. Then the steam will channel into the turbine. The turbine will be rotated by the high pressure of steam, which is in turn rotates the magnet or the coil in the generator, and the generator will rotate and produce an energy. What happened to the excess of the steam? The steam will condense into the water. From the previous, we know the turbine will rotate. When the turbine is rotate, the core on the generator also will rotate and electrical energy is produced. The electrical energy generated is sent to consumer via a power supply transmission system. That is the end of this process. This is how nuclear reactor produce an electrical energy. On this slide, we will summarize the nuclear reactor process. The flow is nuclear fusion produce heat energy, then the water pumped into reactor to absorb the heat energy. The water will boil to produce high pressure steam, then channel to turbine, and the turbine will rotate by steam and rotate the magnet, and and then electric energy is generated and it will send to consume. This is the summarization of the nuclear reactor process. Next, we will look at the advantage of nuclear reactor. First is low cost of operation. The cost to produce electricity from nuclear energy is lower than the cost to produce energy from gas, coal, and oil, unless those resources are located near the power plant they supply. Next is reliable source of energy. While some energy sources are dependent upon weather conditions like solar and wind, nuclear energy has no such constraint. It doesn't matter if the wind isn't blowing or if the day is cloudy. Nuclear power plants are essentially unaffected by the external climatic factor and create predictable and steady energy output. Secondly, stable base load energy. You may not realize that nuclear energy is widely used in America. In fact, it makes up around 20% of all electricity generated in United States. This efficient energy source comes from 98 nuclear created nuclear power reactor dotted around 30 different states in United States. And lastly, produce low pollutions. Compared with coal, oil and gas, it produces carbon dioxide. Compared, and if we can see that nuclear reactor only produce steam, it doesn't need any source of heat such as coal or oil. Next, we will look at disadvantage of nuclear reactor. From 2002 to 2008, the estimated cost to build a nuclear power is from $4 billion to $9 billion, and the power plant often surpass their cost estimates during construction. Secondly, accident. One of the first things most people think of when they hear nuclear power plant is the disaster at Chernobyl. Although we do not know exactly how many people died as a result of the Chernobyl accident, it estimates that there have been as many as 10,000 deaths from the long-term effect of the radiation region. Next, produce radioactive waste. Although nuclear energy produce does not create an emission, but it does produce radioactive waste that must be secure stored so it doesn't pollute the environment. And lastly, impact on the environment. The mining and the enrichment of uranium are not environmentally friendly process. Open pit mining for uranium is safe for the miner, but leave behind radioactive particles that cause erosion and even pollute nearby resource of water. That's all from me for today. Thank you and goodbye. We see you later. Bye.